Welcome to Abnormal, the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. Today, I'm joined by Joshua Lee, an entrepreneur who's gone from working as a personal trainer in London to building multiple businesses in Hong Kong and around the world, including Nutrition Kitchen and OnePT. Josh's story is about taking risks, backing himself, and learning what it really takes to scale ideas into successful companies. Josh, welcome to Abnormal.
Great to be here, buddy. Like I said, sorry it's taken so long, but it's been a bit of a busy year, so I'm happy to finally get on.
It's definitely one I've been trying to tee up for a while, that's for sure, but I'm very grateful for you to have the time and looking forward to unpack why it has been such a busy year. But first things first, for people who don't know who you are, for the listeners, what's one thing that they should know about you to give them the best context for this conversation?
One thing they should know about me, good question to start on. I guess, like you said in the intro, I am a bit of a risk taker. Like you said, I have the two businesses, Nutrition Kitchen and OnePT. Started those with sort of a little bit blindly. So I think for me, a bit of a risk taker, definitely a hard worker, and just play what's in front of me. So yeah, it's that sort of personality, and I'm sure we'll dig into it a little bit more as we go.
Have you always been that way inclined, or is this something you've realized over years?
I think I realized that over years, I definitely wanted to be my own boss growing up, which I think led to this. Maybe that was off the back of my dad being his own boss and having his own business. Never saw myself as being in the long term of being one of 20, 30, 40 employees, right? So I think from an early age or early in my career, I definitely wanted to take that step, even though I'd been in the business, like PT business or whatever, for a couple of years. I knew that's the direction I wanted to go, and I was willing to take that plunge. So yeah, I think it's built within me for sure.
And was there like an aha moment when you were working as a PT, like fresh out of uni? What was the thing that happened to make you finally decide to, fuck this, let's go do this by myself?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of I was already working on my other company, Nutrition Kitchen, so I had that sort of safety blanket of a business that was building a bit of traction, and I guess I learned a lot from that experience, which then allowed me to move away from working for other people as a PT and to take that step. But like I said, I've always been quite willing to risk it. And I think in your early 20s, that's your opportunity when you can do that. Maybe as now I'm 34, I wouldn't be really willing to do that, given that I have a kid, a wife, and a few other responsibilities. But when I was 24, when it all started kicking off, I was willing to risk it all and let it burn down if it really came to that, right? So it was it wasn't too much of a big ask for me back then.
Okay, so let's break it down a bit for the listeners. The two businesses that you co-founded, Nutrition Kitchen and OnePT. Now, obviously, I'm familiar with both of them, but can you just put it in your own words, very briefly, what the two of them do?
Sure. So let's start with Nutrition Kitchen. Nutrition Kitchen was spun off the back of a personal training client, really. So when I was first working in Hong Kong, I was in 2013, 2014. I was working for a company called Ultimate Performance, and the personal training piece was quite prevalent within the space, within the market, and it was growing. But obviously the nutrition piece for customers was still quite a challenge to maintain a reasonable nutrition for the weekly output with paired up with their PT. So Nutrition Kitchen was really we looked at around the world what was happening, and there was a company in the UK that we saw called Fresh Fitness Food, and they were doing pretty good stuff over in London, and we just thought we would give that a crack in Hong Kong. So what Nutrition Kitchen is, it's a meal plan which serves customers on a daily basis, 2 to 3 meals a day on average. There are snacks and stuff included if that's what you want. But really for people who are looking to step into a fitness journey or within a sort of transformation journey, or just want to sort of eat better and feel better, we'll deliver them meals every single day, Monday to Friday. Like I say, 2 to 3 meals a day. And yeah, it's really supplementary to customers who are really trying to level up in terms of their health and fitness. We've been running this business since 2015. It's a long time now, 10 years. We started in Hong Kong. I guess the interesting part of that is that we started with zero capital. The only money I put into this business is 10,000 Hong Kong dollars to open up a bank account. And so the model back then was we found a kitchen, like a central production kitchen. We created a menu and we asked them to execute it. We took in the orders from customers. So we're essentially like a middleman between an OEM kitchen and the customer. And we just built it out from there. Within that first year, we had that arrangement, and then we converted into our own facility when we sort of got to the critical volume. From there, we then opened up Singapore in late 2018, and then Dubai in 2022. So 3 markets currently operational, 10 years deep. It's been a great experience. I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more. But OnePT is sort of my traditional route of, I started in personal training and had a base of customers and a couple of friends working in the same business. And we went off and did our sort of freelance route that everybody does. And some people stay in that freelance space. But for me, I wanted to build something more substantial. And I think in terms of my long-term dreams, this is my business that I really want to build out across the world. We're currently in 4 markets right now, Hong Kong, Singapore, London, and just entered Miami. So the US is all like sort of US growth plan is on the horizon that I really want to double down on. But obviously they're complementary businesses, similar sort of customers, so easier cross sells, if you know what I mean. And it's just an ecosystem that served me quite well and continues to do so. And I look forward to pushing on to the next phase and seeing what happens.
How do you split your time across the 2?
Not very well, to be honest. It's, I think I don't really like calling myself or anybody like C-level or C-suite or any CEO, but I guess I am one of the senior leaders for both companies. And as being in a leadership position, you just play what's in front of you most of the time, right? It's not always fun. You always have to deal with the shit versus the fun stuff. So whatever's being thrown at me at different times of the year or whatever crops up is really what I have to apply myself to. If I could really just focus on product and marketing purely, that would be great. But then realistically, it doesn't really happen, right? Whatever happens that day or that week, you got to put out a fire. You got to fix a solution. I fix a problem with a solution. So I try to keep it as even as I can. I would say that is definitely a work on for me is prioritization. The issue is that we have Nutrition Kitchen and OnePT, but then we have different markets within each, right? So there's actually really like 7 businesses to deal with within 2 businesses, because there's Nutrition Kitchen, market 1, market 2, market 3, and then there's OnePT, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So every business has different problems or different sort of different problems and things to work on. So it really just depends what comes up that day or that week, right?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I have no idea what you're going through. I'm trying to go through something similar myself at the moment. I mean, this is why I love talking to people like you on the podcast, because it's almost like a cheat code for me to pick your brains as quick as possible. Is there anything then from starting these 2 businesses, Josh, that has popped up that you've learned about yourself that you didn't see in yourself beforehand?
Things that I didn't see in myself. I think you just go through, I mean, when your back's up against the wall, you do whatever it takes, right? Even if you have to take pay freezes, you work as hard as you can all hours of the day to get to a position where you need to get to. And I think just like the amount that you're willing to sacrifice to get to the level or the position that you need to, I think probably just surprised me and myself. Like I said, I am a risk taker, but then there is like the level of risk that when your back's up against the wall, how much you're really willing to put in to get to the position that you need to get to. So I think like maybe the level of grit was something that surprised me a little bit, because I'm not going to lie, I had a pretty cushy life all the way up to 23, 24. I was looked after well by my parents and went to a good school, university. Everything was like very structured, right? And easy. And then when you're off into the world by yourself, you learn a lot more about yourself, of what you're really about. And I think I was willing to take risks and suffer a lot to get to. I'm nowhere near the finished product, right? But I feel like I'm on my way to what I'm looking to achieve anyway.
And have you got any examples of times when your back was against the wall?
Yeah, 2022. I know exactly. First quarter of 2022, Nutrition Kitchen was going really, really well, to be honest. Um, we grew we 5x the business from early 2020 to 2022. And that was a result of COVID being a massive plus point, but also I was really learning how to like put our name out there and run ads and stuff like that, right? So we leveled up massively. But in 2022, as everyone's aware, there was the war in Ukraine that broke out, and the global food prices shot up overnight, and our business went from profitable to losing a lot of money, right? So there was a big sort of 6 months there of trying to turn the ship around as much as we could, and the back were truly up against the wall because we relied on obviously our margins being stable, but then when your margins get turned inside out overnight, it's okay, what the hell do we do now? And then beyond that, it was like the Hong Kong CIS waves that came, and then a lot of expats left Hong Kong. So it was like three like challenging things that happened at once, right? So yeah, that was when my back was up against the wall, and we got through that. And we're an unfunded company, right? We don't have cash reserves just sitting there for a rainy day. So we really had to dig deep and figure this out. And it wasn't just me; I was part of it, but the whole team needed to put a massive shifting to turn the ship around when the shit hit the fan, essentially.
What sort of stuff did you have to put in place to turn it around?
Well, it was really operationally like, okay, in terms of like the products, right? How do we re-engineer the product completely in order to fit a cost structure, and how do we that works, and how do we counteract this inflation of our food costs, and how do we try and keep as many customers as possible, even though there's an outflow of people leaving from Hong Kong. So it was on a growth perspective, retention perspective, but then also on a product development perspective, like, okay, well, we need to look at this through a completely different lens now because the playing field is not the same anymore. So it was really across the board of stripping back the whole business and rebuilding it from scratch. And it was a little bit scary at sometimes. I was like, okay, wow, is this gonna get through this period? But for me to share everything would take a long time, and it's quite technical, especially with product development. But yeah, it's really across the board. We needed to like essentially rip up the playbook and build again.
And why haven't you looked to raise any capital for Nutrition Kitchen?
I guess for us, there's two things. Like, where do you want to take the business? Like, how, like, is it different geographies, or expand the product line, or like what is the opportunity you see in front of you? And beyond that, I think, do you want to be in bed with a shareholder or another party which maybe isn't aligned with what you're trying to build and what you want from this business? So I think like for us, Hong Kong, Singapore, and UAE were the clear obvious targets that we wanted to do. But then beyond that, it's like, okay, well, let's look at the rest of the market. I don't really want to go into the US. We went into the UK for a short period of time. It was way too expensive to operate. So we quickly left there. So it's okay, well, where else do we want to go? Or should we just double down on our current markets? And I think when you raise capital, they want to see like extreme growth story. And for us, I struggle to tell the extreme growth story of what it could be at the next phase and the phase after that, right? For OnePT, I think I can tell that story, right? But for this type of product, expanding to new geographies is very challenging because food expectations in every single market are different. People like different things. People expect a different experience in terms of delivery or communications with the company. So it's a lot harder to scale that type of business. But yeah, I think mainly for us, like, number one, do we need the cash? And number two, do we want to have somebody on the cap table, which is breathing down our neck in a direction that we don't really want to put the company in, right? So I think it was just, we definitely explored it. We had many conversations, but nothing felt right to do that. And for us, it's like, okay, well, where do you want to take this company in the long term? And do we want to try and push it to its limit? And I think pushing to its limit is like having a very clear path to global domination. And I think you need a lot of cash to find that path in this space, right? Like a HelloFresh type of cash, right? So I think for us, it's like, okay, well, one day we would love to be acquired. What does that look like? And do we need cash injected now? Probably not, right? So that's the objective of that business, is eventually to be absorbed by a larger player one day.
And do you have like a timeline on that of when you would like this to happen by?
I mean, it's been 10 years and we've had a few conversations here and there. but we're not pressing on it because we're not desperate to sell it, right? So it's really depends on the performance of the business and if the right strategic comes into play. Because like I say, it's been 10 years. It is like it is like a baby of mine, right? It's been, as I've been working at this so long that I don't just want to do a quick transaction just for the sake of making my life easier. And we have some good people within the business as well. So yeah, when it happens, it happens. And I don't think you should rush these things. And I think just having false timelines in your head makes you make poor decisions, right? I think, I don't want to fall into that trap.
How does it feel then, like now that you're on this side of some of the back against the wall moments? And I'm sure there's going to be more to come, whether it's in Nutrition Kitchen or OnePT, but to even be talking so freely about wanting to be acquired, but not in any rush, having, or you're almost speaking with like a sense of freedom and calmness. Like, you know, we love this. It sounds like you've kind of sussed the formula and
Well,
you can wait for a good deal. How does it feel being on this side of things instead of, you know, panic stations every month, cash flow, all the other issues that come along with starting a business?
well, you never know what's around the corner, right? So you never sort of truly sort of settled. Like the apocalypse could be 2 months away. You just don't know it because you haven't seen that something's cropped up. Like who thought COVID was coming? Who thought all the implications of closing your gym and shutting? I mean, like all these things, you never know what's going to come around the corner. So you can't just be. It's not like we've completely sussed it or we're sort of running on easy street. And I think complacency is the killer of any business as well, right? So like I always say to my team, is like it's going fine now. It's like we're happy. But at the same time, in a year's time, the customer expectations change and they'll drop off because they're bored of what you have to give them, right? What you're putting in front of them. So it's tough to drive that into your team. And when you have so many people within the company, like in OnePT, we have like 90 plus trainers globally, right? To like change how they are operating with their customers and leveling up, it takes a long time, but it's required to stay near the top of the pile, right? Otherwise, your competitors are snapping, who are more agile and smaller, are beneath you, and they can maneuver quickly. So, yeah, it's definitely not straightforward and simple. There's always challenges around the corner. It's just, I guess, it's a little. I see a little bit clearly now. There's no sort of massive hurdles in front of me, which makes me sleep better at night, right? So yeah, but like I said, it's definitely, it never stops with stuff, right? There's like, if you're doing quite well now, it doesn't mean that you're doing well in 6 months. So you got to try and keep the ball rolling.
How much of that confidence comes from just having been in the shit before and got through those situations, like learning from doing? You've had your back against the wall multiple times now and you've got through it. How much does that give you confidence knowing that the next thing that's going to come your way, you're equipped to deal with that?
I think, yeah, you just learn from your mistakes, right? Whether you've overspent, you've overhired, and then you put these parameters in place. You go, okay, well, I'm never going to go beyond this. Like in 2022, we hired like crazy. I'm talking, we added like $400,000 worth US a month of salary.
Jesus.
It's insane. Because we were on a bit of a rocket ship, I guess, at the time. And I was like, okay, well, this is going to $40-50 million revenue per year. And then obviously fifth wave and a few other things happened. And I was like, okay, well, let's just simmer down. And then we had all this cost. So I think like having discipline on and understanding the mistakes you learned in the past and understanding how you got through them, but just never putting yourself in that position again, of putting yourself where cash is a little bit tight and you've overhired or you made the wrong hires. So yeah, I definitely learned, and it's just like trial and error, right? But for now, it's like, okay, if we make the same mistakes again, which we definitely won't, you could put yourself in a bit of shit. So just make sure you're cognizant of what you're doing at all times, right? So it's just purely learning from experience.
So if someone's out there listening who's wanting to start their own business and wanting to go on a similar journey to what you've been on the last 10 or so years, what would you say the one piece of advice that you would give that person?
Just start. Like people talk so much about, oh, I could do this. My logo is going to be this. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like it means nothing until you actually take the first step and actually get moving on whatever idea that you actually have, right? People stay in the ideas phase for years and they never take the first step of putting themselves out there and taking a bit of risk. I think taking risk is definitely the first step that you need to get your head around, and just willing to make that first like plunge into whatever you're trying to do, right? It's never going to be perfect. The first version of your kitchen is taking orders via email, right? I didn't wait for the most perfect website to get built, which is going to cost me like 10,000 US, right? I just started by taking emails and working with spreadsheets, right? Yeah, of course it's basic, but it started something. And then that something led on to something more robust. So just start small and just take action. Just stop staying in the ideas phase and waiting for the perfect time to start, right? That's definitely my biggest takeaway from these two businesses.
So you mentioned when we started talking about your origin story for Nutrition Kitchen that you didn't start with any cash, or you put in 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is about £1,000, 1,200 US, whatever, to start the bank account. Now, a lot of people will use that as an excuse to not start, that they don't have any cash to start the company or whatever. Talk us through that process of that first initial stage. Like what things did you do to start this business with no money? Is there anything that you can tell other budding entrepreneurs out there, that tips and tricks that you did where you didn't need that massive capital injection?
I guess mine's a little bit different, right? In the sense that, I mean, we can spin it in different ways, but in my instance, I was already in the personal training experience, in personal training world, and I had customers, right? So I'd be training maybe 12 to 15 customers. And my business partner at the time was my brother-in-law and my sister, and they're all PTs, right? So we had a bit of exposure to the market we we're trying to create a product for. So we had an initial base of customers, and you just need to ask, right? Okay, you see a problem. Any business that you set up, you're setting up a solution to an obvious problem. So Nutrition Kitchen was an obvious solution to a problem that people couldn't cook at home, or they couldn't eat well when they go out and eat in Hong Kong. So it was a useful product for anybody in the space, and it was just asking, and people willing to help you, especially in your immediate circle, give you that sort of benefit of doubt to start with. And for us, I guess like I said, the benefit is that we had direct exposure to maybe like 40 clients to start with, and maybe 20 of them started up. And then off the back of that, because the product was good, the product really can't be average, right? It really has to wow them and be like, okay, I see value in this. I'm willing to stay with you and also tell my friends, right? If you're getting a low quality product or a low quality service that underwhelms somebody, why the hell would they refer you or stick around, right? I would say that to my PTs, right? You could be a low value trainer, sort of expected value or value for money. And this is what each sort of segment looks like. Which one do you want to be, right? And that's the same with starting up a business. It's like the product that you design or you bring out from version 1 needs to be flawless. Like it needs to be like exceptional in terms of effort and in terms of quality, right? So for us, we brought out a product which was better than anything else on the market at the time. Even though it was still basic, we still wowed customers enough to stick around and then tell their friends about it. Because you don't have any marketing dollars to really spend, right? You need to speak via your product, and how much. When I say your product, yeah, it could be the meals, but also could be how much you're willing to communicate with the customer and call them up and deliver bags yourself. The amount of bags I've delivered myself in Nutrition Kitchen is outrageous, right? So you really have to go above and beyond to make them speak about you and tell their friends about you. And this is how you sort of start the fire, right? And then when you have a bit of cash, then you can start doing the paid ads and all these other things, right? So it's really about effort and products really to start with. And then beyond that, when you get around word of mouth and things start moving organically, then you can start layering in the cash when you have some to really put sort of fuel on the fire.
I love that. And I must say, as I've been using Nutrition Kitchen for honestly the best part of 4 years now. I've been in Hong Kong for 5 years, and for the majority of that, I've been a customer, and it has been clear to me from a customer's perspective that you guys have been constantly investing in improving your product. Because from when I first started to what it is today, it's I don't want to say it's worlds apart, because it's not. It was always good, but now it's like really, really great in terms of the selection, the variety, the flexibility. I still can't get my head around that a fucking driver delivers it at 5:30 every morning to my front door. Like, it really blows my mind. And there was one story that I had, I think it was like 18 months ago. I was at my previous company, and I had a business trip to Dubai, and it was a 1 week trip, and it was the week that Dubai had like the worst storm in their history. Like the streets were flooded, it was horizontal rain, it was fucking atrocious. And they just I spoke to your team, and they just converted my 1 week in Hong Kong to Dubai. And in the mornings I was getting these little packages on the hotel reception because the food was terrible in the hotel.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't believe it. I was like on the other side of the world, and I still had my trusty Nutrition Kitchen bag to keep me on my fitness goals, to keep my training going. But it was obvious to me as a customer how much you guys have improved over time. So for you as a co-founder, like, how does it make you feel when you hear that kind of feedback from customers? And is it justified then how much effort you're putting into constantly improving your product, as you're saying?
Yeah, I think like people like you is how this company is still around, right? So we need to look after especially our most loyal customers. It's like, what I think we did there is what we call like a surprise and delight moment, right? Where you didn't expect something like that, but it happened. And I think that goes an extremely long way for customers when they think, oh, that's a bit of a tall order, but actually, no, my meals are here. Like I was just having them in Hong Kong yesterday, but they're here in my reception in Dubai today. Like that's crazy. That's like mind blowing, right? I think that goes a long way. So yeah, I think it feels great to hear that. And it's not, I mean, obviously we can set the direction from the top, but really it's the people that work within the company that make that happen. And that makes me the happiest is that they have managed to facilitate that experience for you, and that they're doing such a good job. Like we have some really good like AAA players in the company, and maybe they're not AAA in terms of like CV, but the amount of effort they're willing to put in and provide the best possible experience makes me feel happy that we have that culture within the company, at least to a large extent, right? That's what's going to keep this thing moving along. And like I said, people like you, these long-term customers or returning customers, is how we build this business. And I'm glad that they're looking after you well.
How do you identify AAA players?
AAA players, I guess going back to what I spoke about slightly earlier, was value for money sort of person. Like if, for example, I'm talking about like a logistics manager, what are they willing to do to go above and beyond their original job scope, right? Are they willing to take ownership in a situation where it's not really in their remit, but they're willing to step in and take ownership and fix the problem immediately, right? Are they willing to make things better versus just sort of keep things as is just because that's what their pay grade is, right? So people who are willing to go above and beyond what their perceived original scope is and make things better, and like I said, improve the customer experience and the product. It's easier to explain that, I guess, in personal training terms of like, what does a AAA personal trainer do versus a C-grade personal trainer? I think it's all obvious that the C-grade personal trainer will come in underprepared, no real training program, sort of half in, not log in, not following up, not sort of dissecting the session that you just did, no follow-up nutrition, very basic sort of communication, versus the AAA guy is everything is strategic, logging all the whole program, explaining the progressions, or why they're doing a regression, like explaining the product, like the next week, or nutrition plan is very sort of tailored and clear cut, and they're communicating a lot on the other side, outside of the gym. So it's really people who are just putting a lot of effort in and looking to make things improve versus just keeping it as is, right?
If you had to choose one to work on full time and drop the other one, which one would it be?
I might put me in a bit of trouble if
this is all just a joke. This is all hypothetical. But if you had to choose, gun to your head, there you go.
I think I could probably provide more impact for OnePT just because I feel like OnePT, the expansion play is a little bit more straightforward, given that the product is pretty similar everywhere you go. So we just launched in Miami, and the customer experience and the product is pretty similar. Well, it's pretty much identical to what we do in other markets. So for me, I have a very clear vision of how to improve things and where to look at the constraints of each business and help fix it or help grow them. So I think, probably OnePT is like, that's my origins of personal training, right? So I think I can definitely add more value there. Nutrition Kitchen is also being 10 years long. So it's a lot more complicated business. So you need specialists in certain fields. to really see massive improvement in that business. Like for me, like, I can't design the menu at all because I have no idea about menu engineering, right? But I have a broad idea and I can add some value to a conversation. But for personal training, I think I understand the full sort of 360 of the business, right? And I believe I can add a lot of value into the growth story there.
So you mentioned when we were talking about raising capital for Nutrition Kitchen, you mentioned there that you felt like you couldn't tell a story, a big story to potential investors to get them excited about a huge expansion, a huge growth, but you felt like you were more confident to do that with OnePT. So what is that story for OnePT?
So if I'm dreaming here, which
Dream
I like
for
to
me.
dream,
Dream for me, Joe.
because I like to dream and reverse engineer backwards of what needs to happen. So people think I'm nuts and an idiot, but if you're looking at something like $100 million exit one day, let's just dream there for now. What does that mean in terms of what you need to achieve? Okay, well, let's just reverse engineer this. Maybe you need to have $10 million of EBIT, so EBITDA, earnings before interest and tax. And what does that mean? How many units does that need to have? Like, how many units can I make that happen with? So for me, it's really just understanding, okay, well, one day, how do we get to $10 million of net profit? And how many units does that mean? How many gyms do I need to launch off the back of that? Obviously, I have a lot of data right now of what my gyms are doing and how much volume I need to be doing. And that's essentially the goal. Will it ever happen? Maybe unlikely. But I think if you push far, you may land on something still substantial, right? That's what one of my mentors sort of instilled in me, is like, let's push the boundaries and see what we can do. But if we land even halfway to that target, that's still astronomical, right? So yeah, I think that would be my long-term sort of objective and plan, is to work towards that goal. How close are we to getting to it now? Still nowhere near, but let's just create a path that's going to get us there. And I think entering the US is something which allows us to stand a better chance. But yeah, I still like to get anywhere near an exit with that business. I think we're probably like anywhere between 7 to 10 years away. And I'm not in a rush. I'm 34. I'll be okay if I get an exit event by the time I'm 44, 45.
So what separates you guys then from other gyms in these territories? You mentioned you just opened in Miami, wanting to really target the US market. Why are you going to be successful in the US?
It's interesting in the US, actually. I think Hong Kong and Singapore and London, well, Hong Kong, Singapore, as you know the markets pretty well. There's just so many similar types of products. There's so many boutique personal training experiences around. We're not the first people, but we were one of the early adopters of like the body transformation style personal training. I'm not overly sure what our competitors are doing. Obviously, I know sort of the main competitors, what they're doing. But really, in terms of like the deliverables of the format that you do, it's not going to be drastically different, but it's willing, like how much customer experience, like how much you're willing to invest into the customer to provide the best experience that is going to set you apart from the rest of the competitors, right? But in America, although America is a beast, health and fitness, I think more on the commercial side of things and less on the boutique side of things. There's got your Barry's boot camps, your solid cores on the more boutique side, but they're the group class concepts, which seem to be doing really well, but they're not like the one-on-one piece, right? So there's not that many one-on-one chains in the States, and I think there is a bit of a gap there to sweep up, right? So as we're seeing in Miami, it's very early stages now, but I think there is appetite, right? And you just need to pick and choose very carefully where you want to play to win. So what does playing to win mean? Is like, number one, in terms of competitive landscape, do you actually stick out? Yes or no? I believe we do with our product. And in terms of actually generating profit, like what is the end of the day look like? Like if I was to set up in New York versus Florida, what's more beneficial? Like it's going to be Florida because the tax system is way more better. Like is no state tax, right? Versus in New York, I think it's like close to 10% on top of federal. So for us, it's a playing to win sort of framework that we look at as, at the end of the day, where we're going to produce the most amount of profit. And I think and where do we stand out as like a leader? Where could we stand out as a leader versus the rest of the competition? I think Miami has shown that it could be a good market for us. So yeah, I think although America is a beast and like the leading fitness market, there's in terms of like detailed specialization, I don't think they're actually there yet. I think on a mass market scale, they are there in commercial gyms, but in terms of like high quality products, I don't believe they're there at all.
How important is it then for you, Josh, to find the best trainers that there are? Because if that's your model and that's your point of difference is the one-on-one training, is that the one thing that's going to either accelerate you or inhibit you from being successful in these markets?
I think there's two questions. Like they're the best trainers, but then there are also the trainers who are the most willing to do what it takes to become the best trainer, right? So we have our ways of doing things in terms of our training methodology, nutrition, and how we communicate with customers, right? And therefore, what does the whole experience look like? How willing are these trainers to dive into the weeds to become the model of what we want? And how much do they trust us? How much are they willing to give, right? So the best trainers we've had in our business over the years are the ones that have almost come in relatively fresh into the industry, but have taken on everything and run with it and improved upon it, right? Versus coming in being like, no, I know this and you don't know this and da 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 da. And that's like a real battle sometimes. People who are coming in with 10 years of experience is like, okay, you got 10 years experience. Why are you not further down the line? And you're applying for the job at the bottom of the pile with us, right? So it's not just experience and best trainer. It's willingness to learn and take on methodologies and culture and stuff like that, right? That's how these guys are going to sort of progress their careers with us.
And what's the way that you're going to enforce these standards globally of the culture, your training methodology? I assume, again, could be assuming wrongly here, but one of the biggest challenges of expanding so wide is the difficulty to maintain your standards, and which have been so successful for you up to this point. So how are you going to go about maintaining those standards?
Yeah, so for Hong Kong and Singapore, I guess it was quite straightforward because myself and my two partners were in Hong Kong and we stayed there for the first years. Then I moved to Singapore and I was there for the first year and set the tone. And London was a little bit more challenging and Miami has just started. But having the right people in the house, I mean, like trusted people who have come from a similar background or within the company that are sort of I have full faith in is going to be the only way. I can't be everywhere, right? Miami is a very different time zone. So Hong Kong's literally 12 hours behind. So it's impossible to communicate with people and stay on top of things. So that is a key hire that you've got to make sure is the right person in terms of knowledge, in terms of leading, in terms of like getting a team behind them. I think that's definitely something like the team need to look at this person and be inspired by their level and who they are and want to work for that person. I think that's a skill set that a lot of people don't have. They may be the most knowledgeable person in the room, but they can't get anybody on side. You know what I mean? Like I've seen that with one of my managers. So really being like having a bit of a 360 skill set of having the knowledge base, being impressive, getting results, and getting people to. My leadership style is like people should be able to like you and want to work for you. Not that you have to be best mates to them, but they want to be around you in and around your environment because they feel like you're the person they want to be following, versus some sort of hierarchy that they're almost a little bit scared to come into every single day. I would hate that, right? So it's definitely a challenge, but I feel like in Miami we have the right person to lead that first unit. And it's really just, if I can promote from within, that would be great because they've been part of the culture. The benefit of ours being around since 2017 is that we have a massive team now, right? So a lot of these guys have been with us since 2017, which is quite unique to keep trainers for that long. Maybe some of them don't have the skill set in terms of management yet, but if we can sharpen them up and then move them on to different units, that would be my objective.
And I'm sure if you're dangling a carrot of, oh, do you want to relocate to Miami? Here's a nice package, help build the culture. I'm sure quite a few of your top performers could be quite interested in an opportunity like that, no?
I mean, it sets people apart, right? If they're willing to take that plunge again. Are you willing to take this step in your career to be uncomfortable, to move to another country, feel like you have no mates, and start from scratch, or are you happy just to? I mean, there's nothing wrong either way. Like, are you more happy and content just carrying on and working within the Hong Kong business or the Singapore business, or do you want to push the limits and see what's achievable? That's going back to what we say in terms of taking risks, rewarding the people who are willing to take the risk, right? So it sets people apart. Even though I think most of them have the capabilities to do it, it's just, are you willing to take that step into the unknown, right? That's it.
As a founder then, Josh, I've got an interesting question for you, which I've wanted to know for a while now. Not necessarily just for you, but any founder that I speak to that, you know, has a great story themselves and wants to, you know, empower their employees and their staff. Because I went through something similar with my old company. You know, he was a serial entrepreneur himself, but I ended up quitting to go do my own thing, right? And I was like, I'm more than happy working super hard, but if I'm working super hard, then I want to be doing it on my thing. I don't want to be doing it on your thing. So have you ever had any of those experiences where any of your employees have come to you and said, listen, this is not what I want to be doing. I want to go do my own thing. Or if you haven't, how would you then react if someone did come up to you and say that? Because we're talking about these internal opportunities, but really, if someone wants to take the risk, then if they came to you and said, I want to do my own thing, how would you react to that as a founder yourself?
I think I wouldn't have a problem as long as it doesn't eat into my business. You know what I mean? Like,
Stay out of my territory.
Yeah. Well, no, they can compete if they want. That's fine, but don't pull away or impact will damage my business, right? That, like, to a degree that is too obvious. If you really like anybody who wants to go out these days and start their own thing, they need to have a certain character. It needs to be a certain character. It's not easy, especially these days. Like, back in 2015, you could just start a business, run some ads and get some business. It'd be a lot easier. These days, it's a lot harder. So if you think you can do it, great, go for it. But let's come to an agreement that we don't step on each other's toes, and we sort of have a gentleman's agreement that you do your thing, I'll do my thing. And we call it, like, we draw a line in the sand there. Like, absolutely no problem if you have that sort of ambition. Will people do it? Some people, like I said, some people just want a sort of consistent life and don't want to take the risk, because you could go off and do your own thing. You could invest $250,000 into a gym and it could tank and you'll be in the shit, right? It's just, are you willing to take that risk? I don't think many people are willing to take that risk. But the people who do stay within the company, obviously my objective is to try and find a career progression as much as I can, like we spoke with them. So I do want to incentivize the best people to stick around. And the best way I can do that is by opening up more and more gyms, right? To give these guys opportunities so they don't have as much exposure or risk financially, but they still have the ability to have ownership in something like their unit, right? That would be like the end goal for me, to continue doing that. And it's a big, like, driving factor of why we want to do that, is to give these guys opportunities beyond us building this bigger business, right?
And what's the magic number that you want to get to in terms of gyms?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it really depends on, like, if I do some back of the envelope maths, it probably would take 20 to 30, 20 gyms, I think would be the target. And also, do we keep the one-on-one model, or do we turn it into like a semi-private model? Or, like, I don't know, right? It depends on what product market fit for each location is. At the end of the day, can each gym produce X amount of profit per unit, right? So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm not married to purely one-on-one. I'm happy to adjust the model depending on what the market is telling me, right? I'm not just going to go in blindly and brute force this model, which maybe doesn't work for that market. So yeah, I think like north of 20 would be a very good position to start having confidence that you're getting towards your end goal.
And what are you on now?
We're actually only on 4 right now. So, but the good thing, I think, we're in 2 markets. Hong Kong, Singapore, like, how much growth can you really get out of that city? Maybe Singapore, you can open another one up in Orchard. Hong Kong, outside of Central, we just built like a really big location in Central. You should go check it out. It's pretty cool. It's about 7,000 square feet, like,
Damn.
Really quite awesome. It's, above Marks and Spencer's in the crossroads of, so it's pretty big. It's pretty cool. So Hong Kong, I think we're happy where we're at. Singapore, there's maybe a little bit more growth. London, UK, there's obviously a lot more growth. But UK, VAT and all these things you've got to pay, and like these days it's becoming quite hard to make like a substantial business. But I think it's definitely possible. Maybe not under the one-on-one model, but there is something there for sure. And the US is something like, I think it's just like unlimited growth, right? If you can show like any private equity or any buyer wants to see a growth story in the biggest market in the world, right? They don't care about your Hong Kong, Singapore, that's great, but how big can this thing really go? If you're in the US and you have 5 gyms in Florida and you enter another territory, then it's like, okay, you guys are blazing here and you're onto something big and we're interested in getting involved now. So that's my objective, is to look at the UK and the US as like our big growth markets.
So talk to us about your last year then, Josh. We started before this call kicked off. You told me how hectic it had been, and I know how hectic it had been because, you know, we've been trying to get this podcast lined up and you've been wandering around different time zones. And obviously with the growth of your businesses, what's been the sort of geography of your last year? Where have you been from? Where have you moved to? Where are you now? What's the plan for you?
It's funny. I was actually counting with my wife how many flights I've taken this year. I think I've taken, I think by the end of the year, I'll be anywhere between 35 and 40 flights this year, which was a bit concerning to me because I was like, wow, that's actually outrageous. So it starts with, we moved to Dubai last year, the end of last year, like end of October, because I wanted to be on a better time zone for all these businesses, right? Like I said, Hong Kong to Miami is just way too much. But because we don't actually have a gym in Dubai, we do have Nutrition Kitchen there, but it's our smallest market out of all of them. It was almost a little bit stupid from that standpoint to be there. But it's because I was always just traveling to the US, UK, Hong Kong, and Singapore. So now we're just considering if we move back to Hong Kong, or do we move to the US and like really double down on the business there? I think my preference is to go to the States and really give it a go and like be in the weeds myself. But yeah, this year has just been, I moved to Dubai, been traveling around for all the businesses. Obviously Miami just started up. I've been over there a lot. And also I have a daughter as well. So like I try and get home as much as I can. So it's just been crazy. And I just want to be more settled somewhere. And I think America is probably going to be the place because it is the center of where this growth is going to be. And I think you should be where the activity is happening, right?
Is that Miami? As in you'll be based?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't want to be like right in the mix here and the craziness, the Lamborghinis and whatever. It's not really my style. But
I know it might be one day.
I don't think it's ever going to be my style, to be honest. Like the flashiness, I have no interest. But yeah, being in and around the area of where the action is, I think it makes a lot of sense because in my experience, it's just been a lot easier to help grow a market when I'm sort of fully next to it, right?
And how does the family feel about that?
My wife is actually from Florida, so it's easier.
Ticket.
Yeah. Although she loves Hong Kong, so it's lifestyle, right? She's been out of Hong Kong, been out of Miami or Florida for 10 years. So I mean, for us, all my family's in the UK and all her family's in the US, so it's a little bit closer to home as well. So it does make sense. But I still have to do a lot of travel with Nutrition Kitchen and obviously the Far East gyms, right? So let's see how it goes. I just want to be a bit more settled this year. I don't want to do 40 flights next year, so it's a bit too much.
I mean, I don't really have to tell you because, I mean, having a PT company and a nutrition company, I was about to talk about the importance of routine and having that dialed in. But I mean, that's pretty much what your businesses are built off, right? I love Nutrition Kitchen because it plays into my routine so much. Yeah. If you're dotting all around the world, then your routine can't be that great.
No, and it's taken a bit of a hit on for sure, of my gym time, my health. And that's another thing is like, I don't want to get past this like 35 years old mark and see myself like, and not really see who I am really in the mirror, right? I was like, okay, I need to get back to who I am and get back into that structure. And I think that habit and routine is massive and no excuses, right? So yeah, I definitely help people do that, but I'm not helping myself at the moment. So let's see. I think next year is going to be a lot better and a lot more stable.
Do you ever still do any coaching yourself?
I haven't had a client since 2020 when I was in Singapore. So No, I might occasionally step in every now and then with an old client because I want to catch up and it's been a while and I mean, obviously somebody else trains them now, but they might be away. But I do like getting on the gym floor and being in the mix and like feeling the environment. But yeah, I haven't coached anybody since 2020, actually.
You mentioned earlier about something that your mentor said, or one of your mentors. Talk to us about that then, not necessarily what they told you, but the importance of having mentors. Like how long have you had
Mm.
these mentors for? Is this like a professional partnership? Is it a professional engagement? Or is this like someone who's just had an impact on you throughout your life?
Yeah. So so I would say my mentor is he's a business partner. So he bought into each company as a secondary basis. So he bought other people out, right? So not like an investment, but buying other shareholders out. So he's a guy called Roman. He was one of our clients at OnePT. He really liked us as guys, and he said, "Oh, I think I can help you guys scale and give you a bit of direction." And I was really desperate for that direction in 2019 as I was just sort of giving this a crack myself, especially like running ads and how to get our name out there. And yeah, he really sort of opened my eyes up to what was possible. And beyond that, not accepting mediocrity in terms of growth, like really pushing the boundaries of like, let's see what we can get out of this business. So yeah, having somebody like that who's done it before is massive. Like his portfolio probably does I think it does north of like $200 million, right? All the revenue that his company he does, and it's spread across the world. So having exposure to different markets and understanding how things work, and also exposure to his team, it has been huge. So yeah, having just the education of it all, of someone who's done it in real life, and he's way more of a risk taker than me. Like, like he's mental, and he's like scary mental, but he's reaped the rewards, right? So having someone in your corner who, if you are a little bit scared, to say, "Nah, you're in a good position here," like getting that validation from him has always been quite comforting. Given that I've known that he's done it before, so yeah, just having that sort of that steer from somebody, even though you don't speak to them every single day, having that steer and knowing that you're on the right path is massive. And I definitely recommend anybody to find somebody in their field or adjacent fields who's done it before to follow their path as much as you can. Use them as a sounding board for anything you're trying to work on. It's huge.
Is there one thing that he's told you over the years that's really stuck with you? If you had to boil it down to one thing.
Something that's one thing that's no, I think like I said before is like just push the boundaries. Like it's not always used to say, I think we were doing like 300 sessions a week in Hong Kong at the time when we first met him. And he goes, I think you guys can do 1,000 a week. And I said, I don't think anyone's doing 1,000 a week, to be honest, mate. And he was like, it's not that crazy. Reverse engineer it. How many customers does it mean? Like, and then we sort of reverse engineer it. And within like 2 years, we were doing like 1,100 sessions a week in Hong Kong for PT. Like, so like him sort of changing my mindset of what was possible, just because my other company was doing 300 or 400 sessions a week didn't mean that we have to be that, right? So just like, okay, what's really possible, and nothing's actually crazy at all. Like that's why I'm saying, okay, well, $100 million exit would be my dream one day. It's not crazy if you reverse engineer. It's like, what does that mean in terms of how much profit do we need to produce? So I was like, okay, well then reverse engineer that, back that into how many sessions we need to do and how many gyms we need to have in order to facilitate those sessions, and just work off the back of that, right? So yeah, I think here's like my takeaway is like nothing is crazy. Like everything is possibility. Let's just give it a crack and see what we can do. Like that's rather than anything technical. It's just opening my eyes up to there is like push your ceiling up. There's always room.
I love that. Personal question, Josh, do you think that your friendship group has changed over the years since you've, maybe let's say like the last 10 years? I mean, you keep saying, oh, this is crazy. But I mean, I fucking love hearing stuff like that, wanting to push for $100 million exit.
Mm.
But like, if you could say that around your friends, would you worry about what they think of you or being judged, or how's that side of your life changed over the
Oh, yeah.
years, if at all?
Some people will think I'm a complete moron, which is fine. You think what you want. I don't care. But my mates, I'm lucky, are all with relatively have a similar mindset, right? I think that's why I am the way I am. I think the way I am, I do, is because they all are on their own paths and similar paths. None of them, I mean, one or two of them work in banks and are on that path, right, and doing really well for themselves, and don't dream of setting up their own thing. But some of the guys are in the complete same situation. I think like that quote of "you are a reflection of the people around you," right? It's completely true. If I was okay just to go out the whole time because my mates want to go out the whole time and weren't pushing towards something crazy, then you're probably not going to be in that same frame of mind, right? So all my friends, especially my closest friends from home that I went to school with, they're my best mates. Pretty much all of them are working within their own businesses, or they're sort of like a co-founder.
Wow.
And they're all pushing onto like crazy things. So I think I have like 6 very close friends and we're all doing our own businesses, and our thing is going like amazingly well for all of us. Not completely, but a lot of us are pushing onto pretty decent things. And it's almost like having your own little founders club, right? People who understand the problems that you go through and can talk to about, and like being in similar situations. And I think surrounding yourself, I'm just lucky that I can surround myself with people who are actually my best mates and have those conversations, versus pulling teeth with people who are working within jobs which they've been in for the last 10, 15 years, who I can't talk to. Because sometimes like I'll go out with like my wife's friends and their husbands, and like, unfortunately, work is a massive part of our lives, right? And beyond that, what can you talk about so much beyond like sport and stuff like that? It's just like if they're aligned with you of what you're doing, and you guys can chat and like really get into a conversation, versus me talking to somebody who works in insurance. I don't know what I would talk to that person about, right? At all, besides what Man United are up to or whatever, right? So yeah, I think people obviously might watch this and be like, well, this guy's an idiot, $100 million, forget it. But like I said, this is a dream, and I am pushing towards a dream that even if I get to a quarter of that dream, it's still a massive thing to happen, right? So I think like set your expectations very high, and even if you land somewhere significantly below, it's still a major outcome. And I feel so like my friends have that mindset for sure.
That's so cool, man. Like, I asked because I think it's quite rare actually to have a real tight inner circle who are all on the same path. And so I think back to, different groups throughout my life, and I can't confidently say that everyone's on the same path. Like, everyone's doing many different things. So it's cool to hear that you've got your own mini founders club. I think that's why so many of these founders clubs exist, right? So that people can soundboard things and get comfort in other people going through the same struggles and etc.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a couple of those founders club events. I went to one in Miami, and like some of these guys, like this guy's like 27 years old, sold his business for $50 million cash. I'm just like, how have you done that at 27? Like, it's insane. So it's pretty inspiring. Like, you want to be inspired every day, right? By these people, and understanding their stories and sharing experiences and getting feedback. But yeah, as you develop and as you grow, like, when I first got to Hong Kong, I was PTing, I was playing rugby, and that's your interest in like going out and doing whatever you can, right? And having fun. But then things shift, and yeah, you want to be around people that are supporting the cause versus the naysayers or whatever, right? If like, you're an idiot, like this doesn't make sense, or you're never going to do it. It's like, well, I don't need that in my life, so see you later. And I'm only going to be dealing with the people who are sort of supportive in what I'm trying to achieve.
For sure. Josh, when all is said and done, how would you like to be remembered?
I think I'd like to be remembered especially with my team, as a guy that they wanted to work for and were inspired by, especially for OnePT, is that I'm really proud of having trainers still on the books who have been with us since 2017. I think that's very rare. And that's not all down to me. I think it's down to the culture of my partners and stuff like that. But having people behind you and believing in you, I think is massive. Obviously, like, you can have your financial goal, but like, your financial goal is really like a reflection of everything else, right? Like, that's the end result. It actually means like very little. But everything beneath that is like, you've done things very well, right? And you've built a team, and you've built like a community and a culture. So yeah, making a difference to those guys who are working within the company, I think for me would go a long way. And but yeah, I think just building that culture and being remembered as a good boss would be pretty cool, to be honest.
Now, the podcast is called Abnormal. It's for normal people that want to do abnormal things. Now, you touched on it a bit earlier, but for those people out there listening or watching who wanted to do something abnormal in their lives, very subjective, could be starting a company, could be running a marathon, something abnormal to them, what would your one piece of advice be to them?
Someone who wants to do something abnormal in their lives, like I said, is like just start, just take action, right? Like, you're never going to change your life by doing the same things over and over again. And that's the same with anything. You could say, I want to get fit, but I'm going to continue eating the same thing, continue doing the same sort of half-assed training regime. Unless you change something dramatically in your life, you're never going to see results. Same in business. If you keep doing the same things year in, year out, your results are going to be flat and stagnant. And it's the same in life. If you're going to be the same sort of average, not human, okay. If you're going to be like sort of content of what you're doing and on loop, your life is going to be flat. So if you want to see significant change and develop, you have to do different things and try different things. And I think that's how you develop as a human and within business, right? So I definitely think putting yourself out there and trying different things is huge.
Love that. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. I love so many nuggets in there. The appetite for risk is very inspiring for myself and hopefully all the listeners of the podcast as well. So appreciate you taking the time, especially hearing how busy you are with the 2 companies and moving around all over the world. So appreciate you taking the time to come on Abnormal. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, Pete. Had a good time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Abnormal. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and give us a 5-star review in whatever podcast platform you are listening or watching on right now, as it goes a long way to help growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.